laid back and a very counterintuitive approach to the whole industry in a way which we want to uh, like leverage that this industry is actually building for people throughout around the world, and it can be utilized. It's supremely composable in terms of like in terms of how market are, how everything is, and there is the beauty of this market and specifically GPUs, and everybody in this stream is actively and passively involved with a single chip, and which is the GPU. And this is what we sell. So we have Bui from Infinix. Glad to have you. We have Prashant
Either.
from Spheron. Glad to have you, Prashant. We have Tosif from Ionet. Tosif, glad to have you. And we have Elsie from Marlin. Glad to have
Hello.
you as well. So this stream would be focused on few things which are quite pressing. Like as somebody who is so our users are not something which we see or we think that are just Web3, and we would want to understand more that. So the very first question of as you guys are the flag bearer of decentralized GPUs, like are there actual people who are buying these capacities from decentralized GPU marketplaces versus different hyperscalers? And this is like more of an open question. Like anybody can chime in on this, and yeah, the question stays the same. That do you really think that are there actual people in DAI space who are utilizing capacity in comparison to different hyperscalers or in different marketplaces which are there, like, and also
Yeah,
like a lot of places are there, and you can get GPUs. Like, are there any use case right now? If yes, how many? What would be a ratio to that in comparison to the Web 2 market? So yeah, would love your guys' input on this.
yeah, I can go first. Yes, to answer your question in short, are people really using it? Yes, people are using it within the DEAI space. Just to give context, the whole DEAI space is mostly a change from not having or not using any centralized services, right? Hence the whole objective of decentralized AI component. And with Marlin, what we do is we provide confidential computing as a use case, right? So in our case, we do see developers using us mostly for that specific needs. So if you are a builder who is building something within AI space, say you are building an AI agent which uses your portfolio details or which uses your sensitive data, you don't want to expose this data to everyone. So that's where the confidential computing aspect comes into picture. And thanks to Intel TDX plus NVIDIA H100, now confidential computing GPUs are also possible, right? So that's what we use as the base layer, and that is what users ultimately use to process the data, compute the data, to derive personalized insights, right? Compared to what compared to having a generic suggestion for each and every one of you here. Now thanks to this approach, you can have like specific insights for say Tausif versus Prashant, because both of their needs are, both of their risk appetites are different, and both of their approach towards portfolio management is different. So that is made possible because of this.
And just not like, do you think customers are scaling on top of it, like on a day by day? Because I think the first,
Yeah,
any of the companies which are there, their first ratio or their first thought process is that, like, I'm going to get to GCP, I'm going to get to AWS, I'm going to get
yeah,
some credits, then get started, then start testing. The
yeah,
credit's going to run out, and then I'm going to look for compute, which is
yeah.
cheaper or up to my
Yeah,
use case.
I think the
So
price is important.
sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the decentralized GPU network cut the cost for AI training. Right? We just signed a deal with the AI Institute of Vietnam National University for the training purpose in the universities. That's sort of the training case. People still use the decentralized AI, right?
Yeah,
And
I
in
think
the
one. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I thought.
In the business
As
use
well.
case, we also sign a deal with agriculture marketplace. They train AI chatbot to facilitate the deal making on the agriculture product marketplace. Yeah. So it's just 2 years,
Yeah, I think
two really case. Yeah.
yeah, I think for the question back, what Prakash has just asked is like, why would I think that the question has to be very simple and straightforward. It's like, why would somebody choose a decent
Yeah.
system where you have to pay first and then like instead of just getting into the GPU, like into the decentralized world where you have to just pay and all of this stuff. I think that's a very natural question, and all of the developer has always been asking. But the best part about decentralized system is that I always tell this to everyone is that there is something called honeypot, right? And all those honey gets attracted to that, and once they get attracted, they'll get trapped. If you go to SF, if you go to Silicon Valley, if you go to now a lot of different places, there is a concept called vendor lock-in, okay, which is very classic concept, and a lot of people have been using that. SaaS models kind of try to change that because now just because of SaaS coming in and micro SaaS coming in, vendor locking are not that there on the application level. While vendor locking still exists on the cloud native level, right? Where if you go ahead and use AWS, GCPs, and all of these platforms, you mostly get locked in. The reason being because they have a lot of these services, and it's not. I would not say it's lock in. There are a lot of native things which they have already. Like for example, if you want to deploy on AWS, you have to build in certain way your application, and once your application is built in that way, it becomes very highly impossible for companies who are small at scale to replicate what they are providing on their platform and the cloud systems, right? So we have to understand that. That's one thing. I think as a cloud system, as a decentralized cloud systems, I tell this, we are not here to compete with them. We are not here to sell out free credits. We are not here to, and there is no way we should even compete with them because the way the theory of ours is very different versus the theory of theirs. Our theory is more P2P, decentralized. We want to distribute the economy instead of one company owning everything. It's people owning everything, allowing people to. I think if this analogy resonates well to the any of the existing audience, even if the 10% of the people around the world understand this, all of the company people who are sitting here, they will be having a more than $1 billion company and revenue getting generated out of it, right? All the
Yeah.
companies here, like even including Spheron, Bowie, and IO.net, and all of these guys. So we should. I think that's what we all have to strive for. I think the best way to look at this answer question. It's not a question actually for us. But again, it's a genuine question. Why somebody and I always tell this to people is like, if you love what decentralized system brings on the table, use it. If you don't use it. Now coming back to credit line, I think at Spheron we did worked on this credit line system because nobody wants to just go and start paying out, right? So what we have built a very simple mechanism. I think all of you, you guys also must be having something of your own. Very simple. Like you log into Spheron, there is a small credit which get allocated to you, very small one, so that you can just test out the systems. Like if you want to lease out a machine, you want to play around, it just works. Now how we are creating that money, because every time we issue a credit, we have to pay some hardware provider out there on the other side. And that's where I think our token that's where our token economics and all of the design basically kicks into the picture, where we are able to subsidize that by giving them entry as allocation into the entire community as a protocol, and then they are able to less.
Bilu.
Okay. I think
Okay.
we
From team members here, like
Yeah, I'm not
who
sure
are,
if you lost him.
yeah,
Prashant,
here
can you
internet.
repeat the last 10 seconds?
Oh, okay. It's 10 seconds. So yeah, I was just telling is that we have this great system on our side. We worked upon that. Like, but it's a very small one because we cannot deploy trillions or billions of dollars just to in the credits to people to kind of use it.
Yeah.
So I'll pause here. I would love to learn from you guys. Is like, have you guys thought about these concepts and how your demand side and what you guys are seeing interesting phenomena in the industry?
Yeah, I think I can kind of jump in really quickly here. Yeah, the concept of like vendor lock-in, which you mentioned, Prashant, is definitely sort of like the key wedge that we've been seeing into kind of trying to build more like sustainable demand, especially on the Web2 side, right? Like, I think a
right.
lot of kind of our like Web2 customers on the IONET side, like, have, our bread and butter really is this like seed, pre-seed to like Series A, B stage, like startup who, are still very early on, like, still doing a lot of experimentation. Their sort of like usage, like monthly actives, daily active user numbers are very spiky. They need to be ready to kind of like scale up, scale down to, protect their like capital base as much as possible, because they're typically like pretty bootstrapped. And then the idea, some of them, of course, like they'll get seduced by the AWS credits, GCP credit, a large number of startups who don't actually get that, right? So I think for them, being able to experiment quickly and trying to find product market fit while still being bootstrapped is really critical. And obviously, if you're an AI startup, compute is going to be one of the largest sort of cost line items in your P&L to manage. And I think that's kind of really sort of like how we've been able to build trust on the Web2 side and kind of almost create like a more of like a pitch for them outside of just, the idea of decentralization, right? I think we talked about decentralization and decentralized AI on the Web3 side. And obviously when you work with projects, like they kind of understand that. But for a lot of like Web2 customers, they understand it too, and they think it's cool, but it's not necessarily the problem that they're immediately trying to solve, right? I think they need like something, like some other benefit on top of that they can't get from like an AWS or GCP. And that's kind of really where we're coming in from. Of course, like I think, Prakash, to your original question of what the ratio is, like obviously like very, very small, right? We're in like its infancy stages of decentralized AI and decentralized compute. And, honestly, when you talk to customers on the Web2 side, like a lot of it kind of comes down to like education to start off with, right? And once you kind of are past that education phase, then you can talk about like, oh, let's test it out, let's try it out, let's actually talk about, doing a deal together and things like that. So I think like the ratio is quite small, but we're already starting to see like certain Web2 customers, like, dipping their toes in, trying to adopt decentralized clusters, especially with kind of like the Ray clusters that we have on the IONET side. We've seen a couple folks, one sort of like image generation, video generation startup who's using H100 Ray clusters specifically to, like decentralize their inference stack. And then we've also seen one or two gaming companies kind of come in and, like utilize more of that consumer grade hardware of like 4090s, 3090s, to do like game streaming and things like that. So I think that's always like one of the most exciting things about this space, right? It's like when you're an infrastructure provider, you can kind of provide these like underlying fundamental, like foundational layers, and then all the builders come in and then figure out different ways to use it. And, I think like the killer use case of decentralized AI, I think is being experimented on and like discovered, right? But once it's like found, it's going to that hockey stick growth.
Like, but do you really think like the adopters are the one who would push business right now? Like, because there would be a time that there are things like which come into play, like SLA, which are mostly, and like the enterprise grade security is something which users look on to. So there are set of people who are joining the line on cheaper grade. Cheap GPUs is something which is basically the mode, but do you really think that would play a long period into a long sustainable growth just because of that? Because eventually these kind of questions do come in, like whenever we speak to customers and we are currently in conversation with multiple data centers, we see that there are so many sets of conversation which happens with our clients as well, which require SLA grade GPUs, which require uh, SOC compliance and all of that. So, do you really think the early adopters would want to chime in onto something which sells them the idea that this is cheap because it is decentralized? Like, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, my take, and then I'll let others go too, is my take on this is, right, and that's kind of why we've sort of honed in on almost this like ideal customer profile of these like earlier stage like startups, right, who typically don't have like the same necessity of like a Fortune 500 company, right? So So we've talked to a few like Fortune 500 companies, but like yeah, like you're spot on, Pradesh. Like it's the conversation immediately. Like they love like the pricing, they love the availability, they love like the lack of vendor lock-in, like scalability, all that stuff that we talk about as our benefits, right? But then of course the conversation always comes down to like security and SLAs and all these like different things. Like and I think so in terms of like adoption, like I think the early adopters, like the smaller startups, will drive kind of the lion's share of usage. But on a just like an absolute basis compared to the total amount of like compute need and like large scale enterprises driving that compute need, like that's going to be a small amount to start off with. But I think with those larger customers, it's at least our perspective on it. It's kind of like a longer road to take, but it's going to be a lot of like very like customer driven, like requirements driven, like product development, right? Of just really understanding, okay, like when you need secure, like dividing these different customers into different tranches of like requirements, like really understanding what's the MVP, what's like V1, V2, like and where can we start off to get like some sort of beachhead of like, hey, it makes if we do this level of sort of security SLA in this format, like maybe it doesn't exactly match what AWS offers, but it's something that we can offer, especially if there's kind of a decentralized alternative that things we're exploring with like staking and slashing and things like that, like different security measures. And kind of start off with that and build like a base of like find some product market fit and kind of move further up the stack. I think that's sort of how I kind of really see like the space and sort of like adoption beyond these initial adopters kind of like really start to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to take a while. Like it's not like a near-term solution by any means.
I have one question for all of you before you jump in. I think this
Yeah.
question is also for all of us here to answer this. And I've been hearing this because we all have been in this space for a long. There are a lot of things which we understand, and there are a lot of things others don't understand. So I just want to hear every one of you individually also on that point of view. So when we always speak about decentralized compute, right? A lot of time people don't understand what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
I'll just ask this question from you guys, one by one. Any one of you can pick first, and then we'll move forward. What do you guys understand, or what do you say when we talk and we speak about decentralized compute, as per you?
I mean, talking to the Web2 client.
Yeah, anyone. So anyone you are talking to, it doesn't matter. Web2 client or Web3 client, or Web3 client also doesn't even, like, a lot of time Web3 people also don't understand what decentralized means, but it's for everyone.
I think from the business side, we can talk much about the decentralized compute. Is about the affordability, right? Here is maybe target the startups, and to us is we also have B2B client, but we have to separate uh, two category of our target audience who only care about the compute, the H100, and the others care much about decentralizing, about token. And they will have a several question like, is this network is sustainable? I mean, behind providing a cheap, lower cost compared to centralized ones, is the network is sustainable? I mean, can they use computing resource as sustainable? And the second is that about who care about the token thing. I think like from our point of view, we also have a program to offer some incentive in token for the Web2 user who want to try our network, test our network, and offer some incentive in the token. So I think it's about scaling tactics, right?
But I have a follow on again. You have touched this very. I think you haven't covered what decentralized compute means here.
Yeah.
He
But
has touched
but
on
for
the customer side.
Yeah.
but you just touched the customer side part of it. I'll roll back again the same question. I think
Yeah.
one thing which you have mentioned is that the cheap compute on the Web2 and on a decentralized part. Again, it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Okay, so we just want to understand and we want to educate people with this conversation. We will clip it out. We will push it out because we guys have been into this space for a long.
Yeah.
So again, I'm asking this is, I don't think that if we are saying it is cheap, on which ground are we claiming that it's going to be cheap? Like what exactly it brings on between, which makes it cheap to access?
So the whole decentralized compute aspect of it boils down to two things, right? So one, it is not something that you are using from a centralized provider. It's peer to peer. It's people like you and I. We have our compute, or you have data centers that generally works with the centralized enterprises, but they are willing to give that compute for everybody and anybody, right? So the main thing that decentralized compute enables is no walled garden, as in there is no accessibility kind of a, you don't have to be qualified, or there is no qualification criteria for you to go ahead and access this compute, right? So we are democratizing compute for everybody. So that is one, the decentralized compute part of it. And the second thing is, what it enables you to do is, you are not relying on any one single entity. Just following up on the previous point, right? So today I'm working with node 1, which is run by anyone in the world. I don't care who is running that, as far as they are running it for me and then I'm getting the result back. All I care about is, okay, I want to compute a plus b. I'm sending my code or whatever the compute that I want to, and this specific node is accepting that request, computing it for me, and then sending back the result to me. That's all I care about, right?
Right.
So at a high level, for me, decentralized compute, what it uh, enables is always available, no qualification criteria compute. That's one. And the second thing is just democratizing it for everybody, right? So there is no selection criteria. I mean, you need to qualify, or you need to have ABCD before you can access the compute. So that's not the case anymore.
But
So
it
yeah,
wouldn't be
Amazing.
hard to protect the users from these pseudonym and anonymous providers throughout. Like, for example, we
yeah,
decide to create this decentralized compute,
yeah,
and Boy gives a 5090, I give a 4090, and I try to cheat the system by saying that I have given a 5090 itself. Like, it boils down to the software which we have created, but
yeah.
this whole governance of
Exactly. I
creating
mean,
such.
yeah, just to add to that, what Prakash is saying, it is a, the whole idea of how can you add trust, or how can you build trust that the provider is doing what they are saying is right. Whatever that I communicated to you, to the end user, how am I adhering to that? So there are bunch of mechanisms there, right? You have either have some kind of governance framework or some kind of staking mechanisms, which ensures that there is incentive or penalization as far as you will be incentivized or penalized depending on what you do, right? So how can you do that? There are few ways. Either you can do benchmarking, you can do periodic benchmarking of the infra that you have, or the second thing is, you can also, some people they can have the same kind of infra, but the bandwidth cost can also vary, right? Someone providing their compute in a high bandwidth region compared to someone providing a compute in a low bandwidth region, the latency increases, right? So there are all of this other hidden kind of metrics that needs to be catered to as well. Prakash was talking more about the governance and staking aspect of it, but yeah, happy to hear more thoughts.
Yeah, in terms of our case, we have a consensus called proof of rendering that we attach it into our economic tokenomic model called burn, mean, and work. Those we have a, also beside burn and mint, we have a work kind of like benchmarking utility to benchmark the node that based on their efficiency. Um, yeah, and we use active noise algorithm for that such type on chain verification. So we can base on the capability, the efficiency, and I mean true work when they involve in the computing process.
So, like, in
Amazing.
terms of efficiency, like, does it take in latency as well? Because I think whenever somebody goes out for decentralized, GPUs, they have this question: okay, would it this all things are going to be in one node? Where could be the geolocation for it? Like, how do you benchmark these many GPUs and things together?
We use active noise algorithm. It's with an algorithm developed by our researcher Eric. His big PhD from France in terms of algorithm, and he uses technique to verify and give credibility to the each nodes.
And for other people, like, I think this Bowie answers for Inferix, but would love to know like how everybody is treating that, like in terms of, because the question comes down to scale as well. Like somebody who is deploying a lot of GPUs, and let's say who is doing federated learning on top
Yeah.
of your GPUs, they would have this question like, what happens if it is what happens in terms of like high latency? What happens if my nodes are based into different parts of the world, and your benchmarking stays on that? And like we are all seasoned into answering these questions to people around it. So like I would want your honest answer on this, not the seasoned answer of
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
gives into.
On-chain
Yeah,
verification is a challenge for the DP,
yeah.
right? And how can you kind of like evaluate the efficiency of each node, or to have it to how you define who can exploit, right? And you avoid that exploitation from the network to mint more token. Yeah, that's why we
I
apply
think
the yeah yeah
Yeah, I think what NG and NG has just told around his algorithm is like, I think there are multiple ways you can avoid these things. Essentially, honestly, it's not that a very big problem to solve. It's fairly straightforward to do it. But I think the verifying the node is quite easy. I think IO.NET team has also done it. We have also done it, and you guys have also done it. I think Marlene, I don't like, I have never tested out you guys, so I can't comment on that. But but I think you guys must have already worked upon it, because it's fairly straightforward to verify and validate the systems and everything. So I think verification and validation is not a problem anymore, because that's been already been solved by all of the teams here. The biggest challenge is that how are we going to be like stabilizing these nodes, because these nodes are no longer going to be stabilizing. And that's where I kind of love the concept of what IO.NET was initially doing, is like, instead of giving out a single machine, we give out a cluster of machines, right? Now, once you do the clustering of the machines, what happens is that even if one node goes down, your workload is already distributed into multiple nodes, and those nodes can essentially pick it up even if one goes down. So it's a problem of, it's a design problem. Like, if you look at very close this problem statement, it's fairly easy to solve again. If you have 10,000 nodes, or let's say if you are today, if you're deploying one your server on one node, it may go down. And honestly speaking, like, if you go and check out the numbers also, GPUs are the unstable things in the market currently. Nobody gives an SLA of 100% out there. The reason may be very simple: GPU can go off. It can go, it behaves in a lot of ways. Somehow it just terminates its cause. Somehow something happens. Okay, you don't even really know. So I think the best way to solve this is very simple: is that you work as a cluster mechanism versus and clustering has been always there into the industry in the Web2 world. When we were also working, is like the best way to always solve any of this reliance issue is creating the redundancy. And the moment you create the redundancy, the issues get resolved, right? So you instead of creating one node, you create 10 nodes. Now question comes into the picture, like, if I do that, would not my cost will increase? Bro, like, anyways, the cost is going to increase even if you are running in a Web2 system. No Web2 system is claiming to give you 100%, but at least in the Web3 system, you have this cluster mechanism, all of these nodes, which you can create or deploy on multiple. You can deploy array clusters. You can deploy different clusters out there in the market on these decentralized compute networks, and basically use it, right? I think that's the only way forward to kind of stabilizing. Anyone saying that we are going to be stabilizing a single node to the 100% efficiency, it's like completely wrong. And when we are aggregating massive amount of compute around the globe, it's not at all possible. So, for example, at Spheron, I tell this very classic story to all of you, and if you guys agree on that, it was a very classic thing which we wanted to build. It's very simple: is that I wanted to ensure that my node always remains up and running. So what we have done is like we deployed a smart agent, and that smart agent, it has money and everything. And since everything in Spheron is like on-chain, you just commit a transaction, you can resolve the compute. So that agent basically maintains the uptime of the node which you're deploying. Okay. So it ensures that it keeps on checking, ensuring that, okay, so now this is done. Okay. So it understands a lot of things. So whenever that node goes offline or something happens, it just reactivate a new one. Or you can also give it a indication that deploy 2 nodes, but keep one in standby mode, keep another one in the active mode, right? So there are a lot of ways you can basically, Prakash, to answer your questions that on the stability and latency and all of those things. Latency is a very different area to discuss because that's a very different problem to solve. But on the stability side, I think this is the best way in any design system. This is how you can achieve it. Even Netflix has thousands and thousands of microservices running in and out, day in and day out, with the redundant systems. That's the reason you are able to stream those Netflix videos. The same with Uber systems. The same with all of these systems. So decentralized system is not a new one. But the best part here, cost effectiveness, right? You get the cost-effective systems. And the reason, and this is my explanation to why computes are like cheaper in Spheron, like in all of the decentralized system also, is because if you look at Spheron, we are only, I think, 16 team members now. Like, just imagine 16 team members were able to build this entire protocol, deploy all of this massive compute infrastructure. So we don't even have a lot of OpEx. Okay, when you don't even have a lot of OpEx, and those OpEx are being subsidized by multiple things, then you end up in just passing this OpEx, which you are saving to back to your users, right? And that's where you see the reduction in the price. That's one thing. Second thing, resource arbitrage, which I always put in place. What is resource arbitrage? Very simple. If you are in Vietnam, if you are in US, if you are in India, the cost of food is very different. In Vietnam, it must be different. The same food may cost very different. In Vietnam, the same food you eat in India, it is very different. The same food you eat in USA is very different. So that's called resource arbitration. So if you put that resource arbitrage in a global marketplace, just imagine how much money you can save, right? Because it's not a food, it's a digital good, which we are talking about. So, but it works the same way on the ground, right? So I think that's the other reason which I basically passionate about. And the third is that, which I have always came through, the same thing has been built by many other products, like in the Web2, RunPod. There are tons of other companies who are doing the same thing what we do, but they are more centralized. The beauty of decentralized system is that you just don't use the product, you own it with that, right? And I was about to tweet it today. It's like, the best part about us is you are not just using a product, you are becoming the part of it. There's a difference. When you use the product, it's a different part. You are just user for them. Okay. You are not an owner of that particular product. You don't have a say into it. You don't have a lot of things into it. But with the usage into the crypto products, you are owning along with it. It's a massive thing for any user base if they always feel connected to that product or basically usage of it. I think that's what I understand as a decentralized system on the compute side as well. And that's how we kind of lower the cost. But I'd love to hear from Tausif also, because he has not spoken a lot. His viewpoint also along it.
I think the issue, I'm just kind of thing I caught your like the stability piece for a second. That's something that like we've spent cycles trying to figure out for. I think whenever you could build kind of a decentralized, that's one of the first things that you kind of run into, right? Ensuring reliability that are distributed globally. And I think that, kind of these hypotheses, solution that kind of involved sort of like very rigorous mechanism, like, like verification proof that these GPUs are performing the way they are. The redundancy piece, like, essentially by over like Ray clusters, like that's sort of what it really came down. This redundancy for customers, where if someone like, rents out like 4 nodes, we have like a 5th one kind of placed in the back end to make sure that if if the cluster sort of like runs into any issues, they can be sort of like swapped out pretty quickly. And then the head node can, dynamically reschedule tasks to ensure that the ones that are kind of like up are the ones that are actually being used. So kind of figuring out a lot of creative solutions to be able to sort of like manage that. But I think there's also a lot of like system design architecture stuff that needs to also come into play, like, where we kind of in the front end, like specifically ask what a customer's like bandwidth requirements or needs are and sort of like how flexible they are on that as well, right? So if someone wants like ultra high speed, like only, like we'll filter out the available sort of universe of GPUs that we like even show them before they kind of create the cluster, so that they just don't have to think about it. But if, a certain customer like wants like cheaper pricing and is, more open to like, instead of like 99.99%, like they're okay with 99% or something like that in terms of like uptime availability, it sort of makes that math a little bit easier, because, of course, with any of these clusters, it's only as stable as kind of, its least stable node, right? So those are some of the different ways that we've kind of tried to optimize, stability and uptime and reliability in like a decentralized system.
Speaking of like foreign things in Web3, there is one thing which is called revenue. And I think a lot of GPU marketplaces have a taste of it, and have understood, like, I think are one of the first POVs into the segment which have seen somewhat how to build scalable things around it. So what's your take of, there are type of companies who are posting on-chain revenue, machines getting leased out and all of that. And then there are companies who are claiming to be like that, we have sold these many machines to these many people and have done this amount of revenue. Like, there are two ways to do this. Like, I don't know if you guys remember that meme where there are two ways, a castle, and then there is a dark castle. So which one of one is this? Like, I want to ask all of the GPIT to you guys, like, what do you feel should be the right way into reflecting your revenue on top of it? Like, it's again open question, and we are going to live create this meme as per your answer, so that we can post it out, whatever answer you guys give.
Would love to go here first. Is like, I think the core thesis for us is like always like on chain. Don't believe, verify. Don't believe on anything whatever we say here. Just verify on chain. You go on chain and check out everything. If those things are there on chain, just understand and learn it. We live in a Web3 world. That's the beauty of it, and I want to embrace that, like embrace it in all the part of our life. So for me, that's the one thing which I always look for. Even at Spheron, we are striving to make that happen. That's the reason, like, we moved to base mainnet, because a lot of time when we were posting things, we were there were people like saying like these are not the, you guys are not producing the numbers. So we said, like, let's go to the base mainnet and start producing those numbers for everyone. So, and we are quite open on those areas. So we are making money. Those money is on chain. But there's one more way we make money, is selling the GPUs off chain. And I think that's one of the things which other team members might also be doing here. The reason is because very simple. A lot of teams, they don't want to go on chain and commit the things there. Okay, because the Web3 is not, there are a lot of still people out of not compatible to go and use USDC, USDT as a payment. Very honestly speaking, okay. A lot of them are not even compatible to kind of go and do it. So that's one of the things which we have introduced at Spheron, is like we are making Stripe payment and all of these payments also to ensure that people are able to pay via Web2 methods without even realizing they are becoming Web3. But there are also teams who just want to make a commitment and deals on the, let's say, server basis. So let's say I don't want on-demand GPUs, which is available on chain, but I want let's say 8x, 10x, 10x servers. 10x servers essentially means like 10 into 8 of X, which is 80 server, 80 GPU cards or 100 GPU cards. They can't just lease it out like from the open market, on-demand marketplaces, because that's not how it works. If they are looking for these machines, they need entire bare metal access with all of those vanilla installed and like servers and everything. So that's how we do it. Also at Spheron, like we, like honestly, like we just don't bring all the things on chain, and they are also not comfortable to do it. but we are trying our level best to bring most of our things on chain, and that's how we want to kind of like move forward. And I'll pause here. I think that's how most of the companies who are here, they are also must be doing it, but I'd love to hear their opinions on it.
Yeah, echo the
Yeah, I think
thoughts. We
I'll go for Leslie.
Yeah. No, I was just saying we also do pretty much the same thing that Prashant mentioned. So all the revenues are on chain. There are smart contracts deployed, and for us, end users have to, if they want to provision any kind of servers, they just interact with those smart contracts, and then they can start using them. So predominantly, that is one way where developers, at least within Web3, they use us. And then there are some early to mid stage startups which are still in beta or in stealth, who are not comfortable using things on chain. Especially these are like a couple of healthcare plus a personal AI assistant kind of startups, wherein they want to do things off chain. It's similar use case like Prashant spoke about towards the end, wherein they want to have a cluster dedicated to them for a specific time window, right? And they don't want to go on the marketplace and go and do it themselves. So Marlin is more of a marketplace model. So anyone can list their infra, and anyone can go ahead and pick that infra, right, and start deploying to those services. So, but yeah, ultimately, don't trust, always verify. So we would also love to bring everything on chain, uh, and sooner or later that is all going to happen. But yeah, today it's a mix of both, but over a period of time we'll see most of it moving to on chain. uh, Tosif.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just to add on to that, very similar experience at IO as well, right? Like, so we have like very new, but we're moving it like of, challenges have been very similar to about sort of like the off-chain like transactions, right? Like, so as I was kind of mentioning, a lot of sort of the people we've been targeting and working with have been kind of like these like Web2 startups who, they don't necessarily care so much about like the blockchain backend and all that. Like, they want like their key customer issues like solved, right? About having available GPUs, like pricing, things like that. And because we're also an early stage like startup, we almost like bend over backwards to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reduce all the friction points for customers to adopt, right? So anytime a customer comes in and wants GPUs and it has to be off chain, like, we're not like, hey, like, you have to adopt this payment method for you to use us. Like, we've gone like all over the place in terms of like enabling like credit card, debit card transactions, like ACH bank transfers, things like that, to ensure that these customers like have like zero friction in terms of adopting our solutions. Like, how we kind of bring that all into sort of like a seamless, like sort of like singular point of truth into like a thing that we can like direct into just like on-chain transactions, and especially with sort of like the different payment terms that we have, right? In terms of like, yeah, like net 15, net 30, like some people paying like, per month, some people paying like, like 3 months up front. Like, how do we kind of bring all that into sort of like an easily digestible format to kind of verify is sort of the sort of like issue that we're trying to like solve right now before we bring everything on chain. But completely agree. Like, definitely one of those things where you have to like verify, not just trust.
Louis, what do you think about this?
For us, yeah, I know Ionet already have revenue. They already mainnet network, and I think revenue of Ionet is quite good actually. For us, we currently have a site, some MOU cooperation, and currently have like Vietnam National University, Freshies, our AI training, and also have some visual computing client because we have a pretty good Web2 track record in 3D rendering. Um, in terms of like, in the Web2 user, it's a fiat size, right? They don't need to care about token. And for verifying on chain is verifying compute of the node. So I already talked about our model proof of rendering for verification on chain. But in terms of scaling in terms of from revenue size, I we strongly believe that have a big market for the SME startups and other to use our decentralized compute, and we can verify from the in terms of compute side about our revenue on in Web two.
So I think we can come onto this conclusion of creating a final meme of two castles, and I think this looks like this. If on-chain revenue is the way to go, I don't know. Like this is something which we're going to push out, but yeah, I feel this is the way for companies eventually. Like they're going to take this space, and everybody's going to put things on chain, and it is eventually happening. Like uh, there is this whole wave that blockchain
Yeah,
are saying that now our mode is only payments now. So yeah, we
I
gotta
have a
put
some
that on chain.
nice. Yeah, I mean
But
it
yeah,
was have. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Please go ahead.
Just fine. Yeah. I just want to add that might be some need to have a mechanism to synchronize with the Web two revenue with fiat size with the on-chain proof, right? On-chain compute verification that's revenue on-chain through the transaction compute. That's based on the deep verification expertise. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's something which is I feel is one of the spaces we are currently in, and there are things that we need to do in the credible side, and that is definitely like reflecting your revenue on chain is one of those things I feel that can happen with time. There is one last thing as we hit the 45-minute mark. So first of all, let me I have to do a very specific thing. So there are people who are watching. We have codes for them to get part of the Road to TG campaign. So
Mhm.
there is one code which is StreamSphere on. So people who are watching this, they can use this code StreamSphere on, put this in, get 500 points, and get started on Road to TGE.
I think
And
we have
there is
to you have to specifically mention it's for new users, not for
it's for new users. Yeah, for it's for new
that's the reason
users.
there are some messages which are coming in.
And then we have one more code, GPU spawn, for everyone. So this is anybody who's watching this. We are already have a tg.spheron.network live, and this is the reason we are also on top of multiple streams, because let's take uh, this whole momentum ahead with us. So guys, there is one thing which we do in the end. So we ask everybody that, are you going to be the part of tg.spheron Road to TG campaign? So yeah, and we do it on the stream, so you can't say no to that. So and you have to maintain that good relationship, right, on even on the stream itself, and say yes. So yeah, guys, and would love to have Infrix, Marlin, and Ionet part of that.
Yeah,
Honestly, we would be sending you specific community details for your community, so
sure.
that they can join in and become part of the Road to TG campaign.
Yeah,
And
we
and
love you
these
guys.
last yeah, let's go. And these last 10 seconds are actually for you to tell what you're building and what you're working on, and if there is something new that is coming up we should keep an eye on. And yeah, please go ahead, and boy, let's start with you and Elsie and Tosif and Prashant. Go ahead.
So our status, we just finished the test nets on Solana. We did the testnet one on iTex, testnet two on Solana. Currently, we are onboarding the Web two clients to try our network. So we facilitate the adoption, which is very important to our network, and we are targeting most of our clients in Asia. Yeah.
Amazing. Esli.
Yeah. So at Marlin, we provide confidential computing as a service. So pretty complementary to everyone who is on the stream here, Ionet, Speron, and everyone. So
Wow,
if
you're trying to
you
sell us?
No, bro. So yeah, basically, if you are looking for something super specific, if you are using some sensitive data that you don't want to reveal to anyone in the network, you should totally check out Marlin. So yeah.
It should be called hush hush compute.
Shush, compute.
Nobody nobody should know what happened.
Yeah, that
So,
that seems like a good tagline. I'd recommend to a marketing team. Thanks. Hush, hush, compute. Cool. Tausif.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Ionet, we're a decentralized GPU marketplace built on Solana. So I think we already talked about decentralized compute a lot, but a couple different things I just want to highlight that we've launched more recently. On the compute side, we launched bare metal on demand plus container as a service. So offering even like more options for people to be able to rent out their particular type of compute from us, and additional customization of virtualization layers, and then also want to shout out IO Intelligence, which is our new inference layer on top of our decentralized compute, which hosts a lot of like the most popular open source models like DeepSeek, Llama, Quen, etc. So a few different things that we have cooking in the kitchen, and excited to share them with you all.
Thanks
Amazing. So
for
I'm the
this.
last,
Yeah.
last picture. Yeah. So at Spheron, we are building the world's largest community-powered data center. And when I say that, it basically means that anyone, everyone around the globe can connect their GPUs, CPUs, or whatever they have. And on the other side, anyone and everyone can basically lease out these GPUs without us in between. They don't need permission of Spheron to go ahead and lease out the compute. They are free to do whatever they wish to. But on top of that, we have already built multiple products, which is driving a lot of demand on Spheron, which includes Supernode, which is Node as a service, the first DeepIn-based Node as a service, which basically deploys Node on Spheron. Second one we have built is called, there is a lot of these video generative videos and tools which we are launching. So those are also there. Scanit is one of the framework which we are working on, which is going to be deploying agents on top of Spheron. So that's what we basically do at Spheron.
Amazing. Thank you so much all for joining this. Thank you so much all for. So I will tell you the best part about the stream. Everybody is in so distributed time zone. You
Yeah.
have to give it up for our speakers from joining in from UTC +7, GST, PST. I mean, the whole this stream is so decentralized than the servers itself. But thank you so much, guys, for joining in, and truly love the stream, and thank you so much for joining in as well. Please follow Sferon, Inferix, Marlin, Ionet, and if anybody specifically you liked on the stream. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
you, man.
Prakash.
Thank you, guys.
Really a great
Thank you for coming over.
Bye bye.
Thanks, guys.